The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Alberta Canola Producers Commission, Sask Canola, and Manitoba Canola Growers.
Welcome to Real Agriculture's Canola School series. I'm Kara Oosterhuis. In this episode, I talked to Angela Brackenreed, who's an agronomy specialist with the Canola Council of Canada. Angela and I talk about walking through your crops and scouting for weeds, as well as how even though you may consider it to be a dry year across the prairies, you still need to keep an eye out for those weeds, because even though you're not seeing them now, doesn't necessarily mean you won't be seeing them in a few weeks.
So this spring has been odd because it's been so unseasonably cool and so dry. We've seen pretty low annual weed pressure. With some recent rains and some warmer weather, they're coming. So producers shouldn't be fooled to thinking that there's nothing there. The other thing that we have seen is some challenging perennial weeds, dandelions, Canada thistle, that we're having to try and manage as best as we can in crop. With the falls that we had, there wasn't a whole lot of fall herbicide applications done.
So can you talk about the importance at this stage of keeping control of your weeds and making sure you know what's going on?
Absolutely. So you know, some of the benefits of a dry spring, as much as they can be a little unnerving, is we can often get good establishment, good ground cover ahead of the weeds, because it's so critical, really, to any crop, but canola is no exception, to get the crop emerged with very little weed competition. You know, there's some key driver weeds that we think of when we think of herbicide resistance, kochia being one of them, with glyphosate resistance, and how that weed can produce a pile of seed and move across the prairie landscape really, really quickly. So, you know, we always want to be looking to diversify our herbicide systems and layer our herbicides, so we aren't, you know, for instance, with kochia as the example, we aren't just targeting it with glyphosate, and potentially end up with that problem on our fields.
So I know weeds are different in every territory, but are there certain weeds that stand out and really drive in the canola? Sure.
So, you know, obviously we've dealt with, for the most part, or hopefully have dealt with the winter annuals, but we are now seeing annual cleavers come up, and particularly in Liberty Link system, we want to make sure that we get those cleavers early on. Now we have another option with quinclorac, and we have some good options. I mean, we're past this point, but we have another option too with a pre-emerge for residual control of cleavers. And I think that's one that has gotten away from a lot of producers, and it's very challenging to manage. So it's really great that we have further options there to control them.
So based on the fall you had last year, did that change anything with what you're seeing for weeds out in the field this year?
Well, I think based on the fall we had last year is why we're having to try and manage these perennials in crop, and when we know we're not going to, I mean, you're just trying to limit their potential for competing with the crop. They're going to have to be actually managed again in the fall. But I think, you know, for a lot of producers not used to that. Most producers target a fall herbicide application for those stubborn perennials, and it's a little disconcerting to see them poking up through the crop, and then you realize how hard it is to try and get control of them with glyphosate or with Liberty in crop.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell producers when it comes to being out and scouting and looking for those weeds at this time of the year?
Well, so a little unrelated to weed control, but now is really the time for those producers that seeded middle to end of May to be assessing the stand that you have. You know, not necessarily something we can do about it at this point if you have a less than ideal stand, but we really need to be informed with, you know, what was our emergence like? Did we have issues with our drill? So that we can make some changes for future years. It's very difficult to make informed seeding rate decisions when we just have really no benchmark for what our survival is like.